What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Feud Season 2, Capote versus the Swans, Episode 5. I know, okay? Life got the life in. I fell off. I got sick. And it was just easier for me to make my other videos than these. But I'm here and we're going to try to finish these as quick as we can. So let's get into it. All right, y'all. So the episode opens up and it's 1975, and we got Babe chain smoking like crazy, sitting on the couch in her study while Bill is angrily shouting about the excerpt from Esquire that Truman put it in Esquire. So she pissed, Bill pissed. But my thing about it is, how can Bill be this pissed? Because he's telling, I get it, your business in the streets. But he's like yelling at Babe, talking about, did you have to tell him everything? And I'm like, well, who was she supposed to confide in? And then that's what Babe ends up saying. Babe is like, well, you don't speak to me. And like, did you have to be so flagrant with your cheating? Like, could you have not picked other people? Why did it have to be Happy Rockefeller? But you had to stroke your own ego. And I'm like, girl, this is a mess. This is a mess. So then Bill leaves the room and Truman ends up calling. Mind you, Baby's like, I need a pill. Where the Percocets? Where the Molly? I need something to calm my nerves. And Bill is trying to help her. And she's like, do not help me. I don't want your help. I said, oh, girl, somebody is very angry and upset. So then, like I said, True calls, but Bill gets the phone. And Bill, when I tell you Bill cussed Truman out, it said, he basically said, we are going to suffocate you and starve you, and I'm going to watch you die slowly for what you did. But honestly, throughout this episode, you pretty much see how these people treated Truman. Like, I know a lot of people didn't like this depiction of Truman because there are people who actually followed this story and really read the book that he released and other like things about him. But for me, as someone who just recently found out about this information, I still see the human side of Truman. I think a lot of people were upset because they felt like they didn't see it. Like, I definitely think he was wrong for releasing the story, because I'm like, if these people are your friends, why would you tell all their business like this? But it's also like that duality of like, you like these people, but you know these people don't like you, and you also hate these people because of what they represent. Because it's like Bill's getting mad saying he was an effing guest and we rolled out the red carpet for him. So y'all never, all these years he was around you never really valued him as such. Same with the way Lee spoke about him. It's like a lot of them and Slim were upset that they let somebody who they thought was a non-desirable of society get one over on them. So like I said, Bill cussed Truman out on the phone, and then we see Truman actually on the phone listening to Bill cuss him out, and then Truman puts his phone down and he ends up taking like 2 sets of like different pills. Like, he ate them things like Tic Tacs, okay? Like he gobbled them down. And then he's still drinking because it's 1975. And we know he stopped drinking like a few times. But he passes out. So Truman was trying to take himself out. So next thing you know, it's the next day and he is laid out on the bed just like, ugh, I'm still here types of vibes. Because he was ready to, leave. Or that's how he feels. He was ready to leave. So he gets this phone call from Jimmy Baldwin, aka James Baldwin. I Googled because I was like, why are they calling him Jimmy? But what I found is that James Baldwin went by Jimmy by his friends. So only like his friends really called him Jimmy, but we, the people who knew he was a author and just the regular public, called him James. So Jimmy like, girl, how you doing? Because I heard they is sauteing you in these streets. You okay? And Truman was like, girl, no. Because I almost took myself up out of here. I'm not okay. I am not okay, sir. And so Jimmy is like, well, let's meet me at Coke. We're gonna go get food. And Truman kind of got this vibe like, I don't want to leave this house, but I probably should leave this house because if I don't leave this house, there's gonna be disastrous consequences for me by my own hand. So they meet up for lunch at Coke. I'm like, do y'all not have another restaurant to go to? Like, y'all don't got any other restaurants to go to. But they meet at Coke. And Truman basically asked Jimmy, why are you being so cool with me? Like, we friends, but we not friends like that, like that. Like, we are more of like associates. We saying, like, we send a happy birthday text, a Merry Christmas text, a happy Thanksgiving, Happy New Year, but we not like friends like that. And what James ends up saying to Truman is basically all other minority groups have community. Black people, women, Jewish people, Latin people, Asian people, everybody has community except like homosexuals, aka, gay people. So he's like, I'm here to be your community because I see you spiraling and I don't think you should be. He orders some dish like called Kotexkia. Girl, I tried. When I tell you, they spelled it phonetically with the captions, and I said, Kokexia? Kotexkia? Girl. But he orders this dish because he wants it to like brighten Truman's day because he likes it. They then bring up another author named Gore, but I guess Truman and him had beef because Gore supposedly was jealous of Truman's success. So Truman was like, of course he is not reaching out to me. He's actually happy that this is happening to me. So Truman is like, what you want to talk about? Why are we really out here? And besides, James or, Jimmy wanting to be Truman's community, he wants the tea. He's like, what else did you not like? What did you not put in the book? What did you not put in that chapter 1 that we don't know about? That's what I'm interested in. And then Truman basically says, James ends up being like, I know Babe is your favorite. So what did you not put in the book about her? So Truman is pretty much like, I don't think she's mad about the sex stuff. I think she's mad that I put in there about Bill's affairs. And then we see a scene where it's kind of like Truman was just always there and around because the girls kind of used him as like a security blanket, because Truman is laying on one of the like couches while Babe and Bill are in a full-blown argument. She still got that cigarette in hand, cussing that man out. And, Truman just laid out on the couch just listening to them arguing. And I think the argument was about like Bill getting caught cheating again. And she was like, I don't know if it's like if he gets off on me knowing that he's cheating on me. And I'm kind of like, okay, girl. So then you got CZ cussing out her husband, talking about, you really out here flirting with the help? She got tree trunk legs. How dare you disrespect me like this? And I was like, well, okay. And then we see Slim there, and when he was at CZ's house, Truman's sitting in the corner in the kitchen while they arguing. I was like, don't none of y'all know how to keep, your business behind closed doors? Like, everybody don't need to know about what's going on in your house. That's why y'all ended up in this situation. Then we see Slim, the ladies are out at dinner again, and Truman's with them at Cote. It was like a flashback, and she talking Cash Money-ish about some lady named Betty McCall, basically saying, that girl stole all my looks. Every time I put on something, she copying me. One of my boos was like, he was messing with her, and she thought I was her. I said, mess. So then Truman is like, I wrote this to come after the men, not after the women. But I'm like, Truman, you had to know, like, inadvertently talking about their husbands' indiscretions were going to like hurt them. Like, you're spreading their business around. So then they talk about the double standard. Girl, we find out the women cheating too. So then now I don't feel bad for nobody, because if everybody is out here being whores, what we mad about? I'm trying to figure out, are the women mad that their husbands aren't more discreet about it? Maybe that's what it is, because we see Babe dressed in up like an offensive gypsy costume out here, and it's like 3 or 5 different men she at the door for. I said, okay, ma'am. Then we find out when Slim's husband was about to, like, they were about to break up, she pushed him out into the guest room while she just had random men come over so she could bang them out. I said, all right. And then we see Lee making out with one of the waiters at Cote. I said, so all of y'all just be out here passing around diseases. Just out here just being nasty, you know? So Truman said, honestly, who the Swans really hate are young women. That's who they really don't like it and don't see it for. And then Truman's like, you know what? I feel like I'm about to throw up. Give me a moment. So Truman pretty much lied to James, talking about like, I need to throw up. And he actually went to the phone booth that they had in the restaurant to call Babe one more time. I'm sick of him dry begging. Stop begging them people. Okay, they mad at you. They don't want to be around you. Move on, Truman. And I hate that because I would never. You got 2 good calls out of me. If you're ignoring me, then I'm done, bro. Like, after that, it's a wrap. So Truman basically is calling Babe, begging to, like, for them to talk, basically saying he never meant to hurt her and he misses her and he hopes Bill doesn't, erase the call or something like that. And I'm like, Truman, Bill gonna erase that call, and plus Babe might listen to it, but she's not gonna respond to you. So next thing you know, Truman gets back to the table and James ends up telling Truman, swans are actually very like aggressive and lethal to one another. Like swans don't really like each other. Girl, if you ever want to read some horrifying stuff, just Google the nature of like male ducks. Just vicious animals. And I mean, I already don't like Canadian geese, but I give Canadian geese props for, they're able to stop traffic. Canadian geese don't play about their flocks. They ride hard, but ducks are evil. Ducks are evil, bro. They are evil. And so Truman is laughing because James ends up saying that, some swans are known to just like take others like nest and just kill them and keep it pushing. And Truman is like, well, they're definitely like, my swans are definitely trying to like kill me. And then James is like, F them, like like James is like over it. So Truman says, one thing is crazy is that I know my swans would never have dinner with a black man because they would never jump over that fake barrier that's there between us. I said, you mean white supremacy and racism and privilege? And James is like, I know. And I said, of course James knows. Okay. So James is like, that should be your next part in the book. Like, that should be your chapter 2 about the racism and classism that is built in that society. And then Truman just talks about how, like, it stung going to those dinners. And it's kind of like Truman knew how they viewed him. And maybe he thought, like, they really cared, but no, the way they reacted to him, like, yes, they had a right to be angry, but they hit him with like they had no care in the world about what was going to happen to Truman after what he did. But he talks about how gays are used in that society as entertainment, and even still today, and black people and like other minorities are used as labor and help. It's still the same. And so there was a they go back to the flashback where Slim was talking about Betty McCall, where they talk about this lady named Bianca, and they're pretty much saying like Bianca's cool to go to parties but not really to have around. And pretty much what Truman lets us know is that Bianca's skin is not white, like it's not porcelain white. So that lets me know that Bianca is probably like mixed, or she's an other or some sort. And so Slim's whole thing was like, oh, she's too loud, acting like they weren't loud at that black and white party, being extra and crazy. So they then start talking about how everything is made for them, made for that society. I was like, yeah, everything is cultivated to uphold and support white supremacy. Okay. So it's not too far-fetched to see that that's what it was. So they end up leaving the restaurant and they actually go to an art museum, and we find out that James aka Jimmy, is living in Paris, and he was like, it's different, but not so different there. But the vibe is, it's straight. So then Truman ends up like saying like maybe I should leave. And James is like, no, you need to stay because leaving would be like surrendering to them. And then so they're walking around the art museum, and James, aka Jimmy, takes Truman to this one piece of art, and we notice that it's under, or it's in, Babe and Bill's collection. And Jimmy was like, why do they care about art? And then Truman's like, they don't really care about art like that. They just want it in their collection. It's like they have a voracious appetite. They could have everything, but it's still not enough. And then Truman talks about how like the Swans aren't really interesting people. They only go skin deep. The only interesting thing about them is how salacious and how crazy their lives are. But they don't read about what's going on outside of their world. On top of that, it's like if they do read, it's like magazines of like geared towards women that don't really have like thought behind them pretty much. So then they talk about Lee, and Truman is like, yeah, Lee wanted to be an artist. She also wanted to do interior designing. The issue is she doesn't have humility or compassion. She doesn't like taking orders. And they do a scene where Lee puts up this woman's, like she does these women's drapes, and the lady's like, this is not what I asked for. And Leah gets the attitude, and she's like, do you want me to go back to the garment district and have them cut you out some more drapes? And the lady repeats herself, this is not what I asked for. Pretty much, yes. Like, and I don't fault the lady. Like, if this is not what I asked for and I'm paying you, take these drapes back and go get me some new ones. So you can pretty much see that Lee is not the type of person that likes to take orders. So they're still walking around the museum, and James is like, swans are actually like good parents. So are they good parents? And Truman makes like a scoffing sound like, no, like they suck. And they give us two examples of Babe and CZ. And with CZ, they're pretty much, I don't know if Truman said this to CZ or someone else said it, but someone was like, does it not bother you that the governor sees your kids more than you do? And CZ's like, I see my kids all the time. We go fox hunting. And it's this scene of CZ in the woods, fox hunting with her child. And the little girl has like all this stuff in her arms that is too big, running after her mom. And I was like, that's not bonding, but okay. And then we have this scene of Babe, which was real depressing. And I was like disappointed because Babe is not cut out to be a mom. Truman said he felt bad for her because he could tell that she knew she wasn't cut out to be a mom. So it pretty much seems like Babe only had children because she felt like that is what she had to do because society told her she had to. But my thing is like, I don't feel bad for you once the kids are here because the kids don't ask to be here. So get some help and figure it out. So Babe is at they're having her daughter's birthday party. You can tell that little girl doesn't know any of the kids that are there. They're all running throughout the penthouse. They have a what's it called? A clown. They're making balloon animals. You see the nannies, and the little girl is sitting beside Babe. Babe is like 3 sheets to the wind, drunk and high. She is like irritated by all the kids running around in the house because she is the person that loves perfection, and having all this noise and chaos is not perfection to her. The little girl is just sitting beside her mom, and you can tell that she's used to it, just kind of looking at her like, okay, I thought this birthday was going to be different, but I guess not. So then Babe is like, be a good dear and tell them the party's over. And the girl's like, okay. And then when she gets up, she's like stumbling around. She ends up like falling or running into the table. And then she gets mad because the clown pops the balloon. And so she's like, and get rid of that clown. And so she goes to the bathroom. like I'm saying, like I said, she is drunk out her mind and she high at the same time. She slips into the tub as she's trying to turn the water on. She can't get up, so she's trying to like stabilize herself because she knows it's an embarrassment that you're this drunk and this like high at your own child's birthday party because you can't handle it. And then the water is rushing on her face and she's like breaking down. And I'm like, my gosh. At least he didn't tell that in the book, unless he did, because I didn't read it. So we then have this scene of Truman and James like sitting in one of the little like lobby areas of the museum. And he's basically telling Truman, stop apologizing to these women. Stop apologizing. I hate seeing you like this. You are one of the strongest people I know. I can't say the word that he used. It's the F word. He's like, you're the toughest, F word in town. Like, you need to do better. I don't want to see you drunk and blackout drunk on like TV. So I guess Truman had like a time like he was on TV and you could tell that he was drunk and it was a mess. And then he was like, why are you doing this? And Truman basically said, because I've been wounded my entire life. Like my life has always been pain. And then James tells him the truth. Everybody's life, like you don't know, people's life has always been pain, but no one gets on TV blackout drunk. Like you got to chill with that. And then Truman says, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of being rejected by these people, accepted by them. Like all of that scares me. And like James said, to his credit, he was like, you've already been rejected. That was the worst. It happened. Let's move on. And I was like, give him the word, Jimmy. Give it to him. Because that's the truth. Like the worst has already happened. Like they rejected you. Your friends abandoned you. There's like, you're at rock bottom. All you can do is go up. Well, technically you could get deeper, but realistically, we would want you to, optimistically, we would want you to go up, the sky's the limit type of stuff. So they leave the museum and go to a bar. So they're at the bar, they're kicking it, talking to one another, and Truman is apologizing to James about the way that he has criticized James's work. And James was like, no, some of your critiques were valid. And James apologized to him about his work. And he's like, yeah. But Truman was like, your words sting because I like respect you, and that's true. Because James ends up saying you can only be hurt by criticisms when you value the person that like says it, or if you believe what the critiques are, which is true. So then Truman says, my Swans would never do this. They would never rally behind somebody and try to make sure that they were okay. They're always in competition with each other. And they're always like, they're very disloyal. So, and then they're also mean and nasty. So it's funny how this episode is exposing the Swans in the sense of showing that as much as they were mad at Truman and they say he was nasty and evil and vile, they were just as bad as him. Because we get this scene of Slim and Babe at that restaurant that they all go to at Capote. And it's like a table for three. And one chair is open and they're waiting for someone. You got Anne lurking in the corner because she still wants to be a part of that world as well, even though she can't stand these people. She goes and she sits, like she's in the corner booth looking at them. So she gets up and she's like, ladies, I have a question for you. Because she was about to sit down and they were like, girl. And so she was like, I have like a friend I was supposed to meet. He's 20 minutes late. What should I do? So then Babe is like, no, Slim started, was it Slim? No, it was Lee. Lee starts it off by saying, I would go home and write a letter. And then Babe is like, yes, write a letter by yourself, with a sandwich and some tuna. Pretty much telling that lady, we don't want you sitting at our table. We don't want you here. So Anne, not wanting to like take that as an answer, sits down, even though they kind of made it known that like they didn't want her sitting at their table. She's like, so I should go home by myself and write a letter telling him to F off. And she's looking at both of them. And Lee says, I wouldn't use that language, but you know how you are. Basically saying, girl, we know you ghetto. We know you're not that girl. So they were mean just as much. He also talks about how they despise growing old, and we start to see how plastic surgery comes into play. And we see a scene of Lee, and she has like a facelift scar on the back of her like behind her ear, but like either it was behind her ear or it was in front of her ear. Either way, Truman is like, people, because they despise getting old, everyone is always trying to try the next best thing that makes them look young. So we get this scene of Lee talking to Truman and pretty much telling Truman he looked fat and withered and he needs to do something about it because she loves him. He also talks about how they all have basically eating disorders. They show this scene of the ladies like pretty much eating air. They already had like small portions and they're just cutting even smaller portions. And we then see Lee discreetly spit like her meat or whatever she was eating in a napkin and fold it very well. And basically it just shows that like they are all so consumed with image that they don't even really enjoy going, even though they go to those places all the time, they go to that restaurant all the time, they don't really be eating the food like that. Just a mess. So it's time for them to leave the bar. Truman wanted to get another drink, even though James said you only get a 2-drink minimum and then we leave in the house, like we're leaving to take you home. So they get home. James is telling Truman, you better be putting grapefruit juice in that cup and not any alcohol, sir. So they get to Truman's house. And while they're at Truman's house, James gives Truman another swan fact. He was saying how swans have gay relationships. And like the statistic is that they will raise like they'll get a female swan pregnant, and then the pairing that is of like 2 males or even 2 females will raise those eggs. They might have like a menage a trois with like with a female, like if a male couple might do it, and then she will leave, but they will take care of the young. And he was like, statistically the gay couples offspring will last longer, like they will survive 80% of the time versus a heterosexual couple where it won't last longer. And like I think it was like 80-30. And pretty much Truman was like, I wonder why that is. And the whole point of all these facts is to prove to Truman that, like, yeah, you did a messed up things, but the society that you are calling out or exposing is not a great one to behold. And naming the women as swans is kind of like the right thing, but it's also the correct label because it's saying how beautiful swans are, but they also are very like toxic and cantankerous and evil creatures. So then as James is telling Truman something, Truman gets up and goes to the kitchen to go get some vodka. And James gets pissed and takes the glass out of his hand and throws it up against the wall. And he's like, sit down so I can tell you something. And James said, okay, this is the reason why I'm here. You are allowing this disease, basically alcoholism, to squander and devalue and destroy your talent. Like, it's horrible. He kisses James, and I don't know if I told y'all this, but Truman was like, James, how come we never got together? And James was like, because we would kill each other. Like, we're too much of the same. Like, it just wouldn't work. And so James is getting increasingly mad because he's like, you have talent, you have everything. Like, you have something that the swans don't have, which is actual talent and the means to speak out and add value to society. So stop squandering it and get back to work because your light is dimming and you're still here. So use this time that you have. So James ends up leaving. And Truman sitting on the couch crying. So then we have this scene of Truman getting ready to go to bed. He's in his pajamas. He gets a phone call from Jimmy, aka James, and he's like, James is like, this is the last swan fact I have for you before I go back to Paris. And he was like, do you know in England the queen owns all the swans since the 20th century, and she's the only one that can legally eat them because back then they almost hunted the swans to extinction. They would use them for food, for like decorations to stuff their pillows. So like legally in England, she's the only one that can eat the swans. So then he was like, oh wow. So then Truman thanks Jimmy for like, encouraging him and coming to see him, and then he hangs up the phone. But I guess this whole entire sequence was a dream, because the same way we saw Truman in the beginning of the episode after he took those pills laid out in bed, that's the scene that we opened up to again. So I guess he was just dreaming about James Baldwin because he admired him and he also liked him like in a romantic way. Because I was like, oh, I like he ain't really there. Like he wasn't there. Y'all didn't go anywhere. But I guess the dream gave Truman confidence to like get back to work, because we see him like sitting down at his typewriter with the windows open. The scenery is a lot more vibrant, and he's just writing all his feelings, all the rage and hate and all everything he has for the Swans out. And then he's on the phone with Jack. Y'all remember Jack? That was like his ex-boy. And he's telling Jack, he was like, I don't know what it is, but I think this book is going to be great. He was like, the words just kept coming. They just kept flowing out of me. And I read some of it to Joanne. We know that's the lady that lives in California. And she told Johnny, and now Johnny wants me on his show reading different excerpts about my book. Like, I think things are turning around. I think I'm coming back. And then the end scene was wild. So Truman gets off the phone with Jack, and we see this dude, like this really young guy. He looks like he's an aspiring chef with like this bag, y'all. We find out that he paid the the young guy to go and get a swan and, cook it for him. He was like, Truman is like, did the swan hurt you? That man has bruises and cuts. Like, that swan was fighting for its life. And then you see Truman eat the swan. So I guess that's supposed to symbolize that it's like he's taking the gloves off. Like, they abandoned him. So if I'm really going to get kicked out of high society, it is what it is. And the last scene is just us looking at a roasted swan. And I said, okay. So yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. Remember to be bravely authentic, and definitely hop down in the comments below and give me your thoughts. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.